Hi, my name is Eva Vlassopoulos and I am in 8th grade at Jackson Middle School. Jackson Middle School is an artful learning school. So for our Bernstein project, without knowing it, that the two language arts and social studies had a connection, we were studying the Constitution in social studies. And we studied the way it was written and why it was written and all the different amendments and things like that. And in language arts class, we read Where the Wild Things Are by Dave Eggers. And we studied relationships between the characters and the main character, whose name was Max. And he would escape to an imaginary island whenever he was feeling stressed, so that was like his outlet. So that was the experience part of the Bernstein project. And then we inquired, where we did a project in language arts where we looked at different pictures of relationships. So this was, and we studied different types of relationships. So this was an intra-relationship, which was relationships between two places. And then this was a romantic relationship. This was family. And this was intra again, like between teams, two different teams when they face each other in any kind of sport. And this was people to the environment. And this was amongst themselves again, so intra, the Beatles, when they broke up and why they broke up. And lastly, we did segregation, which kind of linked back to what we were studying in social studies at the time about the Constitution and freedom and equality and all of that. And we finally figured out that they all had something to do with relationships. So we realized that that was the broad category that we were studying. And in language arts again, we looked at Max's relationships with the characters in his story from The Wild Things. So we looked at his relationship with himself, which was really important, because your relationship with yourself defines what you do and how you act. And his relationship with the neighbor that he really liked, his relationship with Gary, which was his stepdad, his sister Claire, and his mother. Then we also took a look at Max's interactions with the characters on the imaginary island he had created and linked together some of the characters to the characters in his real life. We created our project, which was when we finally realized that the Constitution and the relationships had something to do with each other. So we created a giant glass, almost a mural of these different pieces that fit together and show different relationships between places. Like in social studies, we had been studying ideals that the Constitution hoped to make clear, like equality, justice, peace, structure, liberty, and compromise. And then issues, or sometimes the reality, which was kind of unfortunate that these ideals weren't real in the real world, like being unfair, violent, poverty, inequality, disagreement, etc. Now let's go take a look at the creative part that I was just talking about, which is our glass project. So here was the final result of what we created. Our class decided on the colors blue and green. There wasn't really a symbolic meaning behind that. We just thought that's what fit our project best. And this is the design. It's like squiggly lines that don't really mesh together because of what we were saying before, what we hope to achieve, which are our ideals, and reality, which isn't sometimes always exactly what we would like those ideals to be. So every single person got to work with another student in the class or two more students in the class to create their glass piece. And this was the glass piece me and another student worked on. So our ideal that we chose to focus on was equality, and every single glass piece is a different, focuses on a different symbolic meaning of one of the ideals, and it may not seem clear, but if you look deeper into it, then you can kind of interpret what you want it to be. So on the left side, we started with inequality, because all the shapes are different sizes and some overlap, and it's kind of chaotic and confusing. And then to the right side of ours, all the shapes are very simple and straight edged, and it's just very clean, and they're all the same exact size, which expresses equality because they're all even. And finally, in the middle is where the two very dramatic ideals and non-realistic parts meet, and they kind of mesh together to form a reality, or what we hoped to have a reality be of the certain moral. So finally was the reflection segment of the whole Bernstein project. For our reflection, every student in the class wrote a paper and answered a series of questions. The significant question that we decided that we should answer by drawing connections through all the different things, which were the Constitution, the Wild Things, and the Glass Project, was what ingredients are needed to develop and maintain a healthy relationship regardless of the relationship in question. So the Constitution, people to people, the art project, ideals and unrealistic ideals, and when they meet in the middle, and where the Wild Things are with Max and other characters in his life. So first we talked about Max and what was the biggest negative trait he had that affected his relationships the most, and I thought that was his lack of self-control, because he did things very impulsively and wasn't very balanced. He just kind of did things out of the blue, and he was kind of crazy. But something that helped develop his relationships really well was his ability to trust. He was very faithful in anyone that he was talking to, that whatever he needed from them, they could get done, and that he could trust in them. Next, we focused on the Constitution and how the Constitution affects controversial issues in modern day, like gay and lesbian marriage. That's what I focused on. And lastly, we focused on our glass project and how there had to be a sense of balance among all ideals or morals in any element or anything. So to answer the significant question, I decided what I learned through the Wild Things, the Constitution, and the Bernstein Glass Project was that there were many key ingredients needed. You need equality, you need respect, compromise, loyalty, trust. There are a lot of different traits that are important to that, but the most important thing is to have a sense of balance among them, and you can't be too unrealistic or too hopeful in things, that there needs to be balance between the two.